Hi, everyone. Welcome to another week of Strategy Solutions and Sanity. Today, I am so excited to bring Adriana on. She's got these Adriatic vibes for me ever since I met her. I always think Mediterranean, even though she is not from Greece or anything like that at all. But hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. That is the best introduction I've had ever. Thank you for having me on. This is
Yeah.
going to be a lot of fun. I could already tell.
Oh, yeah. I'm always trying to find fun intros. I remember we did a panel back in July, and I had two Ashleys, and one of them was blonde and one of them was brunette. But like they were Texas and Tennessee. I was like, that's too similar. Like I'm gonna mess up that. So I was like, okay, this is my legally blonde Barbie Ashley, and here's the brunette Ashley, and that's how we introduced them. But anyway, now I'm rambling. Adriana, we first met maybe was it 3 years ago through the Denver Chamber. We were doing a mastermind kind of cohort. So I've had the great honor and pleasure of seeing kind of your evolution in business from figuring out where you want to stand in business and then kind of going through this rebrand and then just looking at your content, seeing just an absolute level of confidence shine through now with what you're doing. So take us through your journey, how you started and kind of how you ended up to where you're at now.
Sure. Oh gosh, that's such a fun question. So I guess I'll start off by saying like I am not like a business owner by trade. Like I started out my career in healthcare. I'm a nurse. I still keep up my nursing license. I'm an ER nurse. I've dabbled in a lot of different things: ER nursing, neonatal ICU nursing, primary care nursing, leadership. And I got my master's degree in 2019. And I was like, I'm going to be an exec. I'm going to be a hospital exec. And a few years into that leadership journey, I was like, oh, this is not it. I love people, which is what drew me to healthcare. But I realized the higher I climbed on the ladder, kind of the more lonely it was. But it was really cool to be able to influence change and help people and coach people. And I started keeping track of my favorite parts of my day. And it was always when I had the opportunity to do one-on-ones with employees. And I was like, oh, like this is my favorite setting. And it took me back to nursing. So I kind of, when I met you at the Denver Chamber, at that point I had left my senior manager. It was like a senior manager job. I was overseeing 4 different departments across the state of Colorado. And I was like, I just need to figure something out. Cause I always had the scratch to be an entrepreneur. Like I always knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. And I found a few clients coaching, and I realized that people needed help with their words. And that was something I was always pretty good at, having tough conversations, but it's evolved. Whereas now I have like a leadership coach. I'm certified in executive and leadership coaching, but I found this real like passion for public speaking. And now that is most of what I do, where I put on workshops and I facilitate conversations for companies that are having difficulty connecting through difficult things. So my evolution has been a little bit clunky, like everyone's probably, but that's mine. And it's still very much growing, but it's been a lot of fun.
But it's a very authentic kind of organic way of growing your business. And you were like, how do I stay true to who I am? And like not just chasing the dollars, but chasing the passion and doing like a fun audit. Like, where do I really enjoy my days? Now, you're still nursing though. You're not just doing the coaching and everything, which if we paused on that, I think you got an award for like your Toastmasters, like humor or something, right? Like what was that?
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you to ask. I did. So I entered a humorous speech contest, and shameless plug for Columbine Communicators. If you're ever in the area, we'd love to have you. You can come for free as many times as you want before you join. So I'm like, I really need to work on bringing some funny into these workshops, because these topics are so heavy. I'm talking about conflict at work and boundary setting. Like these are very difficult conversations to have. And so I entered this competition for funsies, and I ended up winning. And I won something called District, for people who are not familiar with Toastmasters. And that is all the state of Colorado and a few surrounding states as well.
Wow.
And it was a humorous speech competition. And it was just a good stretch to be able to incorporate new skills as I present things because it makes it more fun to talk about these things. But thank you for
Yeah.
asking.
Oh, that would make me so nervous though. I do think I can be funny and I do try to bring lightheartedness to my work. Like a lot of times I'm sitting with owners and we're brain dumping and like they're talking about some heavy stuff like and just kind of chaos and problems. And
Mhm.
there's ways that we can crack jokes and make it feel like okay, like this is kind of shitty, but it's going to be okay, and we feel good about it. But if I had to purposefully write a speech that was intended to like make people laugh at certain moments, I would be so nervous. How did you feel when you were doing that? Like, were you just like, oh, these jokes are coming along naturally, or how did that develop?
No, not naturally at all. I don't consider myself a funny person.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, I have to do this. But it
Mm.
really is a lot of trial and error. And I'm very lucky that I found a supportive community with my Toastmasters group because they gave very direct feedback, which I appreciate. They're like, that was not funny enough. And I was like, okay. So
Sure.
yeah, a lot of it is just trial and error and figuring out what lands. And um,
Mm.
I like there's different formulas to humor. And so it's just figuring out what was funny to me. And one thing that I do is if I laugh throughout the day, I have a little note in my phone. I'll make note of it. So I'm like, how can I repurpose the structure of what I just found really funny and incorporate it into like writing a speech? And then it's also like doing feedback after events too. So if people come up to me afterwards and I heard people say like, oh, I really like this. I'm like, what was the part that resonated most with you? So it's getting that constant feedback and being open to critique because it was a very new skill for me as well.
That's interesting because also being able to receive feedback, I would argue, is a skill that people have to learn. I think many of
Mhm.
us, especially we've seen parenting styles lean more into praise, right? So I think a lot of people nowadays really struggle with receiving feedback. And I'm sure that's part of your
Mhm.
work as well, right? Of like even going through conflict. So was that a skill that you had to learn since starting your business, or did you always seek out feedback from people?
That's a great question. So I know that you and we did the strengths assessment during that
Mhm.
mastermind, and I figured out that learning is my number one. So if anything, I think I seek too much feedback.
Too many opinions.
Yeah, and I think that for me, my opposite problem is like very candidly just being like, I don't need external validation to know I'm doing the right thing. But I'm always, and I think that like part of being a newer business owner is just eating humble pie. And being a nurse, I'm just I'm very aware that I will not get better if I'm not doing things that I know are best practice. And so for nursing, they really hammered it into us. They said, if you're not learning, you're not growing. And then a saying at my Toastmasters group is practice makes permanent, feedback makes it better. And so I know that people are like, practice makes perfect, but how do you know if it's any good if you're not getting any sort of external perspective?
That's a great point. Like there are times where I'm like, oh yeah, I can keep trying this yoga move, but if I don't have someone telling me like your hips ain't like this is bad form, right? Or if you're going to the gym, you can try to be stronger, but if you don't have someone really telling you what your form looks like,
Mm,
then you're practicing the wrong thing over and over.
mhm,
So that's interesting of like the connections between nursing and how that's really benefited your business now. So let me go back to, I wanted to touch on that you are still a nurse. And that was something that we talked about in our mastermind because there was a period of time where I didn't know that you were still nursing. You just talked about, hey, you're going to work with healthcare leaders and things. And then I was like, your content needs to have pictures of you in the ER. Like that's so badass. I need to know that like you know the struggles of the nurses in everyday life. And so
mhm.
I guess also like tell me like why did you hold on to your nursing license? And maybe it's partly financial, but maybe it's also just like you wanted to stay in that world.
I mean, both. Like,
Yeah.
like I've gotten to a point in my career where I've been a nurse for now 11 years, and I wouldn't say it's comfortable for me, but I've worked in enough settings to be like, oh, like I'll go pick up a few hours, make some money. And like starting a new business, it is not like I'm not making $1 million like month one. Like it does not work that way.
Yeah.
It's been a very like it was a big change to go from making a steady six-figure
Mhm.
paycheck to being like, you know what, I'm going to prioritize my happiness. So I'm very grateful that I have my nursing license to fall back on, but then also I genuinely enjoy the work. I love
Mhm.
nursing, and I think in part because I do have good boundaries with my career as well. So I know that was really good advice that you offered, because I remember you were like, you need to post things in scrubs. And I was like, well, I can't post from inside the ER because that could potentially be like a HIPAA violation. And
Yeah,
not even
yeah.
if patients are around, but just to honor the surroundings. But I've received that feedback and like internalized it. So I've been trying to be better about posting more things in scrubs, and it keeps me very current on the things that people are facing too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, but I think there's also, like, if you go with the humble pie, um, I mean, not that you've ever had a bad picture. I'm just thinking of myself. If I were to do a 12-hour ER shift, I would not be looking too selfie ready. But there's a yeah, I look kinda chaotic, and this is what real nursing life is,
Yeah.
and there's that humility in just posting it. Um, okay, so you said something interesting there, like you have good boundaries with your business and balancing all of that. What do you mean by that? Because I feel like sometimes boundaries is like this up in the clouds idea for
Mhm.
some people, and so help ground that for me.
Oh, okay. So when I think of boundaries, and let's say anyone who's listening to this, they think the word is very like nebulous. They don't really know what it means. So for me, when I think of the word boundaries, I'll think of like, where does my energy feel like it's going and it's not being productive? Like where does it where like what people do I notice? I immediately feel like a sense of like irritation, or what situations come up. And so for me, I try to have a good catalog of the emotions that I have throughout the day. And I noticed that after I have certain encounters with people or types of patients that I've worked with in the ER, I'm like, oh, that was really tough. It helps me be aware of it, and that's my sign to lean into self care, have a little bit of a different internal dialogue with myself. So boundaries, I think of more of wasted energy. And as a business owner who's also working in the ER, and I have a life outside of the multiple hats that I wear, I want to make sure that I have enough to give to people that I care outside of it too. So I know if I'm working one day in the ER and it was a really hard day, I'll like tell my husband on the way home, like I'm coming home with like a 10% battery. I will not be very chatty. And so that way it like avoids any miscommunication too. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it's kind of bringing to mind, like a Brene Brown strategy. So she talks about how, marriage is not 50-50, and like you also can't bring
Mhm.
100% of yourself every day. And so she'll tell her husband sometimes like, okay, I'm at like 80%, right? Like I can, and how she can, carry the load for him if he needs to. And sometimes she's like, I'm at 30%. And he has to then carry the load. And so to have that self-awareness of kind of where you're at and how long of a day it is, and that communication with a spouse, I think, is super important.
Mhm.
And what's interesting there with what you said, boundaries, I've never heard this definition before. And I should clarify, like, I have total appreciation for the concept of boundaries. I think that we just tend to live in a world where people maybe overcompensate with boundaries and like throw that word around
Mhm.
without really knowing what it means and what it should do for you. And so, what I appreciated about your definition was you brought in the idea of wasted energy. So, it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to have boundaries to like protect me, and have like this very self centered approach to life. But it's just, okay, where do I need to make sure I'm not wasting my energy? And where can
Mhm.
that protection of energy really be? So, what are other areas, I think, also in business, because we're going to go a little off script here. Business owners also tend to have really poor boundaries when they first start their
Mhm.
business, whether that's like when it's, okay, we're like over scheduling on networking, or where we thought we would have these policies or things in our contract, but we don't really hold them up well with clients because we're afraid of losing these clients and things. So where
Mhm.
did that practice of boundaries then benefit you on like the business growth side of things?
Oh, yeah. I think also to just like I always throw this out there as well. Anytime the topic of boundaries come up, I really like to clarify my role as a coach, not as like
Mm,
a therapist. So a lot of times with coaching, it's forward thinking and actionable. And there's so many different types of workplace boundaries. So many different types. And for me, like the way I've always approached it is helping people understand maybe where they don't want to be spending as much time, energy. So it helps for me to like use those words to bring a concrete definition to the problems that people are facing. But I just don't want to like misrepresent myself or like what I'm actually able to help people process. So everything is forward thinking and actionable. And with being a business owner, sometimes we get into conversations that are just like that with clients, especially with coaching. So if I
Mm.
feel somebody is bringing something up that I'm not qualified to do, I'll say like, do you want to talk about this as a friend? We could go off script because like I am not qualified to do that as a coach. This is your hour of time. Like, how do you feel ready for this? So I never want to misrepresent what I can do for people. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm also a nurse. People feel comfortable getting into very heavy topics with me, but I have had to draw very clear lines where it's like, I'm also a mandated reporter. So if you tell me something, like I will have to report it because my nursing license trumps my coaching certification. So I always write that into my contract and I will verify that people read it before we have our first conversation as well.
Wow, that's like that brings a whole other level of like seriousness to your work then. Like you kind of have like this, it sounds like you still always kind of have to be on. And like, yes, as a business owner, if we're, client is paying us for a service, like, yeah,
Mhm.
we have to be on it for them. But it just sounds like this extra layer for you of like always having to kind of evaluate everything that's being said to another degree. Do you feel that pressure or heaviness in some of those conversations?
With some conversations I've had, yes. But I mean, coaching is just, it's really active listening and trying to understand what's like the next layer underneath the surface. So it's
Mm.
come up maybe like once or twice with people, but I wouldn't say it's something that wears on me at all.
Okay,
And
and
maybe
that
it's
comes
just the
back to the
awareness. Huh?
I was gonna say it comes back. I think it comes back to your Adriatic grace. You're just like this sea, this wonderful, graceful sea in life.
I'll take
Because
it.
I'm also thinking like, wow, we've like lightning rounded a few questions here, and I'm like, okay, hold on, let's take a step back. Let's come back to like the fun part because you are such a fun person as well, and you did this stretch with trying to have a humorous speech. So I guess I'm also curious if we try to lighten it up a little bit, have you been intentional as well, like trying to not only introduce humor into some of your workshops in public speaking, but also find more moments for fun in business and life recently?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
I'm learning how to make bread, which is
Oh,
hard. Um, that's been like something fun where if anyone has any sourdough tips, like reach out. Yeast hates me. I've like wasted so much flour. I find joy in cooking. And I know that a concept that I talk a lot about is like people hear the concept work-life balance. Being a business owner, I think more of work-life integration. So like sometimes my day will be a patchwork of like personal time and business. So I do try to block time for myself and communicate with clients like, hey, I'm not available at this time, or like, I appreciate you thinking of me to do this, but I'm not the best resource for that. I try to redirect people. So
mm,
I do block my calendar. And just living in Colorado, I go hiking a lot. Like I just love being outside. So yeah,
mm.
there's definitely moments for fun in there too.
Man, hiking in Colorado though, that it brings stress for me. And maybe I just haven't done it enough recently, like since I've had kids.
Mm,
Um, but I'm just like, there's so much traffic to get to a good trail. And like,
mm.
I don't like, for me, a good trail is not the ones that like there's still neighborhoods around. Like, I want to forget that like city life exists when I go hiking. And I'm just like, there's just too many people for me. But I don't know. Maybe I just need to get out more. Um,
So what has your experience been where it's just like too crowded at the trailhead then? Or like
I
it sounds
don't
like
know if it's like too crowded at the trailhead. I think it's more just the process of getting to the trailhead is
Okay.
infuriating.
Okay.
I yeah, I want just like I think there's a part of me that will always want the city. There's another part of me that's like, can I have a cabin in the woods where I don't have to drive anywhere? Like cars do not exist. I never have to see a traffic light or people honking. I could just walk and breathe the air. I think that's more of my thing. And so by the time I get to the trailhead, I'm already like annoyed with life. Does that make sense? I know it's
Fair.
kind of bougie. I'm kind of
No,
complaining.
No, no. I mean, I will say like I'm very lucky. I live close to the Front
Mm,
Range. So I don't like like that makes it a little bit easier. But then also I'm not like you have kids, you're getting ready to go hiking too, and like you have to like get there. So I could imagine it. You have like more things that are on your mind that you have to think about before you even get to the trailhead. But if it's stressful for
yeah,
you, like that's
don't
fine.
do it.
Yeah, don't do
Yeah.
it.
To that point, and I feel like anyone that's listening that has kids, like this is a really great point though. Like I if I do go hiking with my kids, I'm not packing a bunch of stuff. Like there are people that bring everything and anything for their hiking adventure. And I'm like, especially like, people you see people go camping and they have like these grills and their air mattresses and all this stuff. And I'm like, just book a hotel if like that's what you're trying to do, you know? So when I go hiking with my kids, I'm like, you got shoes, you got a hat, you got sunscreen and some water, maybe a snack. I'm not packing a whole like hiking backpack for you. Like go get in the mud, go be a kid, be outside and keep it simple. And I think a lot of times
Mhm.
everywhere in life, business and personal, we have a tendency to overcomplicate. And it's like, just what is simple? So maybe that's what's happening with your yeast and your sourdough. Maybe we're
Probably.
overcomplicating the
You're
recipe.
probably
And
killing it. I'm like, here's some extra sugar.
yeah, we just gotta get back to, you know what I did though? I don't make bread also because like we just don't eat like that many sandwiches and toast and stuff. So I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? So I'm a sweets person. And so if you're
Mm.
struggling with your yeast, I would recommend let's go like a cinnamon roll route, like
Ooh,
go
okay.
a dessert route, because then, even if you mess it up, it's still like you still just throw some cream cheese on it and it tastes really good, you know? Like think of the end goal here, you know? Um, okay, but to that point, you said you like cooking and you've also kind of experimented a bit with like your social media, and I've seen you like
Mhm.
prepping salads while talking through things. So what kind of inspired that and how's that kind of marketing experiment been going for you?
Ah, yes. I got some feedback from one of my friends who's like a dear accountability buddy. We've put on some events together, and um, she and I were FaceTiming, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make dinner during our meeting because today's just been like a dumpster fire type of day." She's like, "Sure," and we're talking, and she's like, "You should make content like this because this is really fun." And I was like, "Okay." And I'm not against trying anything new. And that was the best feedback I've gotten for any content. Like people texted me outside of these social media platforms and they're like, "What are you making?" And I was like, "What?" And I think that was fun because I know that we had earlier spoken about how boundaries can be like this word that people throw around, but they don't really know what it means. And it's like it humanizes these really tough
Mhm,
topics. And I think that one thing that people forget is like these issues they follow you home, and so it might
mhm,
feel a little bit more conversational for people, and I've found that it's very well received. And like it's funny because like my experiment showed that it got fewer impressions but way more engagement per than any other post. I got so many messages from people and they were like, "Thank you for making this a little bit more fun to talk about, and it's more conversational and fun." And it was very interesting, but I think that's my challenge is just how do I show up vulnerably for people so they can feel safe doing the same, talking about these things. And I cook a lot. I genuinely enjoy it. So I was like, how can I marry the two to
mm.
make make it fun for everybody?
If I could just come, that I think that is the coaching session right there. Like if I could just come over and you cook for me while I vent and I just drink a
Yeah.
glass of wine, like 100% would pay for that. I think I've mentioned this on a previous episode, but I'm like, I think more, I know you're not a therapist and there's some similarities. I think more therapists or at least coaches should do more like, all right, we're going to walk on our session today. I know some of your stuff you do is
Mhm.
is virtual, but if you're doing in-person things, like do like, okay, this session is walking, or this session we're gonna like cook together, or do something that's not just like sitting and hyper fixating on a problem. And I say that knowing that talking through things is helpful, but sometimes like just doing something else, like your brain just turns on a different gear and you get more
Yeah.
creative with the problem solving. Do you
Yeah.
find that like when you're FaceTiming your friends and trying to think through an issue?
Oh my gosh, yeah, and some people find eye contact very confrontational. Like some people just aren't comfortable with it, and I think that so being in a traditional like therapist office, like sitting across the couch and having someone stare at you as you like divulge your trauma, like that is
And like
very
writing all
confronting.
the notes. Like, what are you
Yes.
writing? What?
Yeah. Yeah. Like exactly. And then the same thing for coaching, because most of my clients have been across the US, across the world. And so there's no alternate option. But I've found that just varying the way that we interact with each other. So sometimes like we can turn our screens off. It could just be talking. That could be good. And it's funny, I'm actually hoping in the near future to partner with a therapist and put on an
Mhm.
event in what's that? It's like up in Boulder. It's a really beautiful state park. So we're going to put on an event for first responders, but being out in nature. So it's in total alignment with the topic we're talking about now, because it does make a difference for people.
Yeah, and not that I've ever worked in a hospital, but I have visited them and been admitted like in pregnancy and stuff. And I mean, there's not a lot of what I would imagine to be like breathing room, right?
Mhm.
It's these heavy LED lights. I mean, there's some windows. Most patients have their blinds closed. Like you are it feels very much like we are in a manufactured environment, right? We are
Mhm.
in a human built environment where like there's no nature fresh air, and so I can see that event being just so lovely and refreshing for people. And
Mhm.
you've put on quite a few different events. Like I think you have, is it Boundaries and Bubbly or some cool
Yes.
alliteration? Okay.
Yeah.
To share like how did those events go, and like and is that part of you just wanting to speak more? Like where is that idea coming from?
Yes. Lots of different events. The Boundaries and Bubbly I put on, let's think here, last year, August, and it went really well. And the intention was, I mean, you and I have networked a lot. Like I've seen you around, and I just don't like the vibes of traditional networking. It's not fun to me. And also it's like I always feel awkward. Like you step into a space, I'm like, I can't believe I'm paying to be here, kind of is like, and it's not like one organization that does this. I think this is just the standard, industry standard for what networking can look like. And so my friend and I came up with this concept where I'm like, let's make networking fun. And I'm looking to do more public speaking. So that's when we did group coaching on Boundary. And that's how Boundaries and Bubbly became a thing.
Mhm.
And now we've done it for now a few different organizations. It's probably one of my most requested workshops. And it's just where it's like, show up, we're going to tell you how to network. Like, here's a piece of paper. We're going to actually physically tell you where to go so you don't have to worry about anything. And then, bonus, after you make new friends, you're going to figure out a plan so you don't burn out at work. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Mm.
And it's a cocktail hour event, of course, Boundaries and Bubbly.
Yeah,
But it's been a lot of fun. It's grown a lot. I actually just did an event yesterday, and it was like 150 people at Boundaries and Bubbly.
that's
Um,
awesome.
that's why my voice might sound a little hoarse. I was like, yeah, the whole night yelling.
Yeah. No, but that's so amazing because yeah, I've talked about this so many times in so many different groups and in other like content of like networking does suck. Like I have to put boundaries on like how I'm gonna network, how I'm gonna follow up with people. And there's two things that I've realized. One, I like do not go to events unless you trust the person that's putting on the event. Like
Mm,
the person that you're putting on the event, are they someone that you could like survive a lunch or dinner with? Right. I think you very much are that kind of person. But there are some people I'm like, no, like my meter for them is 5 minutes and then I need to go like fake smile elsewhere.
mhm,
Um, so do you trust the person putting it on? And also like can you just show up and be yourself? So I've termed the phrase of unhinged Sam. And it's like where I'm not trying to be uber professional. Like I'm going to events and I'm not trying to find like my corporate clients at these events. I'm just gonna show up. I'm gonna be a little unhinged, not like a hot mess unhinged, but just like I'm gonna crack an inappropriate joke, or I'm gonna just like show up with all this energy. And it makes it so much more enjoyable. I tend to find people that I actually connect with, like that are authentically wanting to connect with me. And I'm not coming home drained and wishing I never attended it in the first place. So
mhm.
that's my advice to people. Can you be a little unhinged?
Oh, I love that. Like, oh, I wish I would have met you 2 years ago, because I cannot tell you how much time I spent networking, and I had come home and I was like, was that for? I didn't know. I came home and I felt drained. I felt like I had to put on a mask almost. It felt very disingenuous. And now I'm like so comfortable with myself. And I'm an ER nurse at heart. ER nurses, we are not chill. Like we are not like so it's like ER nurse Adriana, like that's me. I've been an ER nurse for a long time. I'm from a big
Mm.
Mexican family. I'm loud. Like I love people, and that carries over into my business too. So I think that is the best advice I've heard in a long time about networking.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to snap my fingers at that a little bit. I mean, I think for me, part of it was like, not that I'm the one being interviewed here, but I'll just have my little segue. I think there's always a part of me that's like, I don't want to come off as obnoxious. And especially like, I also come from a Latin background, so I'm Puerto Rican. And my mom grew up in the Bronx, like very West Side Story.
Mm,
And so are things that she intentionally tried to like dissociate as far as like being a Puerto Rican. And part of that was like, you don't draw attention to yourself. You don't show up and like, you're not going to be the loud Hispanic woman, you know? And I'm still not that kind of person. Like if someone is overly loud, I'm like, you're American, you know, like, oh God. But it was kind of breaking through that and saying, okay, like you can show up and be this energetic, bubbly person without being obnoxious. And like,
yeah.
that's totally okay. Okay, sorry, I'm okay. I want to go back to there's a few different things that you've said along the way that I do really want to touch on because one of those things you talked about how a lot of this conflict resolution stuff can follow you home,
Mm,
and so how just showing sorry showing that like hey, we're just at home, we're cooking, we're doing stuff that you might be doing after work and talking through what you might be thinking about when you come home after work, how that
mhm,
really resonated with people. And so I want to dig into that a little bit more because, especially for some consultants, we work from home, like we're thinking about work often, almost all the
mhm.
time, right? Sometimes it's not just this work life integration, like you mentioned, it's not a blend, it's like work is kind of taking over, and we have to set some boundaries there. So I'd love to understand, were there other moments for you kind of driving yourself insane and a little bit crazy in business if this is following you home and like we need to push back a little bit? Or did you always have some strong boundaries when it comes to the business side of
Yeah, no, I've failed plenty of times.
it?
So many times. And I think of some client engagements that I've had where people were reaching out very frequently when I was in leadership. I remember getting really like phone calls that were not urgent at all at like 2 or 3 AM from some employees. And I was like, "Well, why are you calling me?" So it was just it was a lot of learning. And then I realized that like after the moment has passed, it doesn't stop there. I still felt so anxious. I still felt very frustrated. And that's when I that was my cue, and it was, like, several hours after this, and I still felt a little heightened. I was like, "Oh, like, I have to learn how to, like, 1, prevent this from happening again, and also working through my self-talk a little bit because I'd come home after a hard day at work, for example, and it would affect my mood, affect my interactions with my family, my husband, and I didn't wanna be a version of myself at home because of a part of my day that was already done. So it's like
Mm.
learning how to unplug for me was just really important because these stressful situations will always come up inevitably. So it's like my tolerance level got lower and lower the older I got, where I was like, you know what? I'd rather have free headspace. That's way more valuable to me.
Yeah, it's awesome though that the tolerance is going down, but you're taking it positively. Like you're not like the angry grandpa, like get out of my yard. Like you're okay. How can we recognize what's happening but still find the joy in life? It sounds.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Also on that note, going all the way back to the beginning, you said you kind of wanted to get out of the leadership roles in nursing because it was lonelier at the top. So you had
Mm,
less of this interaction and those fun moments in your day. And I'm also curious on how that has translated over to entrepreneurship because especially if like networking sucks sometimes, a lot of times, 90% of the time, unless you're at boundaries and bubbly. And a lot of entrepreneurs feel really alone in like all the decisions they have to make as a business owner, and just kind of that isolation there. So how
mhm.
does that feel as an owner?
As an owner, it's definitely been an adjustment. I will say being able to pop into the ER, I still get that sense of community,
Mm.
and that's been really wonderful. And then also I am on the director for I'm the director of sponsorship for the National Speakers Association Colorado. And so I've becoming part of this board and like integrating myself into this community. And I'm actually part of a mastermind of women through that group. And we will just co-work on Zoom and not even talk. So it's almost like a sense of accountability where we're co-working in a sense. And of course, there's like work that I do by myself all the time. That's the majority of my work. And that it balances out, I would say. But for me, I'm very aware that I need some sense of community, and I like very much benefit from being around people. That's why I love my Peloton. I get yelled at to pedal faster. Like I'm not a solo workout person. I need to be around people. I grew up with that. So I've learned how to strike a balance and where to find community, and it does fill my cup.
So you're very, it sounds like the strategy for you there is being very intentional with knowing what you need and then seeking out the right groups for that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think just back to the point of networking, being around people that I'm a little bit more familiar with or in a community that we all share the same type of work is really helpful. So like I love networking with other nurses. Like the conversation is just automatically a little bit deeper, a little bit more vulnerable.
Mhm.
I love networking with other nurse managers and nurse leaders just because there's already a shared experiences. The conversation just like by you pass go on the Monopoly board. It's just so much faster right away. But to your point, joining the right community, being able to show up your authentic self is really, really helpful for me because I don't feel like I have to um, it just flows a little bit better.
Yeah, you don't have to put that mask on. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to fake it to go make it. It's just like, oh, I genuinely enjoy talking to this person.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I love meeting new people. I met probably about 50 new people yesterday at this event, and I was like, "Wow, that I hadn't been to a networking event like that in a long time," and I was like, "Oh, I actually miss open networking." But I've also learned how to insert myself into a conversation and, like, care a little bit less because networking, like, communication decorum is kind of out the door. People are just bopping in and out of conversations, so I think it's just a balance of both.
Yeah. Well, I think also and I'm this is something I experience, and it sounds like you might also experience this because you have this level of charisma, and that is something that is naturally magnetic for people in a networking event, right? Where they're like, "Oh, I
Mm,
want to go get to know this person." Like I'm just going to gravitate toward the energy in the room, and I've always struggled on like how do I say this without sounding like arrogant because I humble pie every day, y'all. Humble pie is part of my diet. Like life humbles me very quickly, constantly. So I don't mean this arrogantly, but I do find it in some networking events where, oh, like people are coming to me and they're getting more value out of this than I am. And like I'm not meeting like the best people for me. Like awesome that like everyone likes me, I guess, and like I'm kind of having a good time. But like
mhm.
where like I still need to kind of sift through the people that I want to meet. And so like, yeah, I do like open networking. I do like meeting new people, but it's still like I've got to filter through who I really want to connect with. Do you find that as well? Like, are people just like gravitating to you and then you're like not getting what you need out of it?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think with open networking, my definition of what a successful conversation looks like is just a little bit different. Like, I don't go to networking events thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna land a client today." Like, I think I go to it knowing that I'm there to build connections, and if I am in a conversation with someone and it's going really, really well, I'm like, "Oh, this is my cue to potentially connect with them on LinkedIn and have a virtual coffee and maybe just see where things go." Um, but for a long time, I did go to networking events and I was meeting a lot of people and they were fun conversations, but it didn't really amount to anything. So
Mhm.
uh, maybe that general experience resonates with what I had a lot of last year.
Yeah. Well, I also think like general advice for anyone that's still like aggressively networking, like you should not be going to find your clients. Like you are going to find either clients that you're going to build like a really long relationship with and then close eventually down the line, or you're going to find those referral partners. Like
Mhm.
if you're going to actively seek clients, just stop. You'll waste all your energy, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned this a few different times, of vulnerability. And
Mm.
you can find vulnerability really easily when you're talking to nurses. Like there's that shared common ground experience. But that's also part of some of your content of just trying
Mhm.
to show the vulnerable side of things. That's kind of been like my theme of the year for me this year has just been, how do I be more vulnerable? How do I be more slightly unhinged? And I'd love to understand how you found comfort in that. Because also I'm imagining as an ER nurse, like there's, like you said, there's no chill. You've got to be on it. Like you don't show your emotions, you don't show your human side. Like there's shit to do and there's people to save, right? So how did you get comfortable with being vulnerable?
Ah. It's funny. I get this a lot where people are like, "Wow, you're so confident online." And I was like, "I don't know any other way to be." I like I don't know. So that's such a funny question where I think I realize about being a speaker and a coach is people aren't going to be vulnerable with you unless you're vulnerable with them. And I'm just at a point in my life where I'm like, you know what? This is I really believe that a lot of my work is very much like I have talents that I need to share with people. And I've Sam, I failed so many times to get good at conflict, like so many times. And I think for people to see that, to say like, and now to be like, oh, she's a conflict strategist, she speaks on it. It's like I need them to know what step one looked like because it
Mm.
took me decades to get here. And so I do it knowing that what I'm sharing, those stories give other people hope and hopefully prompt them to start showing up themselves a little bit more confidently as well. And for me, that means I'm sharing my failures, I'm sharing my stories, and I'm sharing what the ER is actually like, and to be like, hey, this this situation was really hard, but it doesn't mean that it was always a fail. So it's like, how do I show up vulnerably? How do I show up people, tell them my stories to make sure that it's prompting people to change themselves?
Which is such a grounded perspective to have. And it allows, I think, for more optimism when you're going
Yeah.
into like those those heavy conversations.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I don't apparently I've not had enough water today. I've had too much coffee, as evidenced by me jumping all over the rack
It's
place.
okay, I'm joining my Burger King Diet Coke in the morning. Here
Mm,
we go. Yeah.
there we go. I know we were talking for our listeners. We were talking before we hopped on live how McDonald's has all these breakfast campaigns now with breakfast sandwiches and Diet Cokes, and I'm like, why are we drinking a Coke in the morning? And like that's you.
Yeah.
We're judging a little bit. We trying not to judge, but judging a little bit. Like,
I'm judging me.
but
Yeah.
I get some people are not coffee people. In which case I am super judging you because I'm like Lorelai Gilmore in Gilmore Girls. Like there's just always coffee in my hand.
Oh, I had
Um,
coffee too.
like, this is the 15th round of caffeine. What do you mean? Like,
I'll
oh,
hit my 200 milligrams. I'm just slowly getting there.
I remember when I was pregnant and I was like constantly Googling, like, what's the max amount of espresso that I can have today?
Mm.
And maybe I should not have done that. My kids are a little off the walls constantly. But you know what? Like, we're just taking it day by day over here in Sandland. This is unhinged land, okay? But okay, we were talking, let me find my thoughts again, because we were talking about vulnerability. We're talking about how it took you decades to get to this place of conflict. You had to kind of know where you had to show your clients where step one was. And
Mhm.
you mentioned like just because it doesn't turn out this way doesn't mean it's a fail, right? So we're more
Mhm.
grounded, we're optimistic in how we're looking at conflict. Because sometimes I think about this sometimes with conversations with my husband of what am I okay, we have tension in this area, we're arguing, not like we're like, yelling, arguing, but we're in a disagreement.
Right.
And so what does it look like to like have a successful outcome here to get out of this? And to not just be like, oh, I need to share my feelings and like F this, all and like just have this pessimistic viewpoint to things. Like how do I have a just because it goes out this way doesn't mean it failed, like because XYZ is still good in this. And bringing that to team members as well, right? Like if I have to give feedback, this is going to be tough. It's not a fail if they like feel bad about this, like, okay, maybe they should feel a little bad, like they messed up here, but the successful outcome is that they at least understand how to avoid it in the future, right? And they can also receive that criticism without feeling too shitty, right? And like there's still like some positive stuff going on. And so I guess I'm also curious, like, is that something that's been difficult for some of your clients of like just understanding what failure would actually look like and like what still
Mm,
success and conflict resolution looks like?
that's a great question. And I think you answered the question while you were asking it,
Sure.
where people demonstrate change after it. And I don't
Mm,
consider personally feedback to always be a conflict, because feedback sometimes is it just closed ended, where it's like, hey, this was done wrong, like what are your thoughts, how can we change this from happening, how can we avoid this happening in the future, where it's not a bad thing, but sometimes people just need to know when they do things that are wrong. And I don't view that as like a conflict. It could feel very confrontational. When I think of a failure in conflict, it's not even engaging in the conversation at all. Or when people show up and the emotional temperature is so high, you can't even get to a conversation, which happens a lot in healthcare. We have people that have very high experts, physicians, nurses that have been in healthcare for a long time, where they hold their expertise so near and dear to their heart, they can't engage in something or see past it sometimes. Happens.
mm,
It's hard to let go of that expertise or sometimes that ego in these conversations. So I think a successful conversation looks like when people show up and they feel psychologically safe, like they actually belong in the conversation. And we figure out from all the different parties involved what a win looks like. And a lot of times it's going to be a changed behavior, a changed process, or a changed outcome, and making sure everybody can contribute to that outcome. So, for
mm,
instance, I get a lot of times people saying, like, I'm having a lot of problems with my peer. They are not pulling their weight. Like, I don't know where my job starts, their job starts, like very blurred lines. There's like what is standard work. And I know that you and I are very like operationally directed, where it's like we think about these things and it's like, what do you mean you don't have a shared standard work document? A lot of companies don't, and it causes a lot of conflict. So for that, it's maybe people coming together to talk about those things. So the outcome and what success looks like will be highly determined by everybody that's involved and the level of collaboration people bring to the table. Now, for the person
mm,
initiating the conversation, there's a lot of things that you can do to reduce defensiveness. But I think success looks like, just for a lot of people, maybe if they're conflict averse, just even entering that conversation to start is a win. Like, it doesn't have to be a beautiful, eloquent conversation. Just get there, just get started.
mm.
That's a win.
That is such a good reminder for people because even in the process world of there are times where some of the questions I'm asking are like what makes you frustrated throughout the day, like where, because that then pinpoints, okay, like where is the work broken. And there are times where, okay, it gets a little bit to a venting session. It's why it's one-on-one sometimes and not always in a group.
Mhm.
And they people will express frustrations with someone else, and then I say like, oh, okay, well, have we talked about this? Because I'm trying to understand like where are we at in in finding a solution here. And it is somewhat unbelievable to me how many times people will be like, I haven't mentioned it, or
Mhm.
like, we haven't even talked about it. Like, they don't know that I'm frustrated or something. And I'm like, step one, step one is we all need to be on the same page about what is going on and just to initiate that conversation. And sometimes you don't find a solution in that first
Mhm.
conversation. And that's okay, but you've at least like you've started the race. You've crossed the start line,
Yeah.
like mm,
Yeah.
okay. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna I totally agree. It's like, just get to the race. It's like in my head, I'm like, just
Right.
get to the gym, Adriana. You'll figure it out when you're there. It's like, like, just go. It's
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I cannot show up to the gym without a plan though. I respect the metaphor here, but just on a total side, like I need to show up. I think because I'm a very coordinated person, but it's just me and my body. Like if you ask me to dance or cheer, I've got you. But like once something else is introduced, like I don't play volleyball. I don't do, like something else is introduced and I feel very uncoordinated. And so especially at the gym, I'm like, I don't know half of these pieces of equipment. And here are all these gym bros. And I'm like, I'm not trying to
Mhm.
embarrass myself. That's a level of vulnerability. Like the performer in me is like, you can't show up somewhere and like not know what you're doing. So if
Mm.
I go to the gym, there has to be a plan, or I've had to at least like say, okay, I'm going to use these pieces of equipment and I'm YouTubing. How do you use this before I show up, you know? Um, anyway, I don't know. Do you just show up to the gym like making stuff up sometimes?
Oh my god, yeah, and I've hurt myself too.
Okay.
I'll share. My husband and I, we moved far away from our gym now, so we have a basement gym. So there's really no
Hmm.
excuse to never work out ever. Like I have a gym
Get it
downstairs.
together.
Yeah. Come on, Adriana. But I used to do CrossFit when I was a newbie to CrossFit. I
Oh,
remember trying to learn how to do this one. I was new to Olympic lifting, and CrossFit is a blend of a
okay.
lot of different things, and I really enjoyed it. But I remember learning how to snatch, and that is when you have like the bar, it's like bar to overhead and your hands are
Mhm.
wide, and I remember not having the mobility or the strength to do it, and it was so frustrating. So yeah, thank
Mm.
God the coach was like very kind, and she was like, "This is new for you, like be easy on yourself." And I was like, "No." And it just, that was a humble pie. And I was like, wow, I'm new
Yeah.
to this. I can't expect to be lifting 150 pounds like the gal next to me when
Mm.
this is day one. So it just goes back to building the confidence muscle. Just like to show up, just do it. It's going to
Yeah.
suck at first, but a step one is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, you know, practice and progress. If at least you had a coach there, like
Yeah.
this is how to do it, here's the form. But to
Hmm.
that point of competition, there's an Orange Theory across the street for me. And I did Orange Theory for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, this is not the kind of group class I need, because I'll always end up next to someone that's like 6 foot. They've been working out forever, and I'm trying to run at the same pace as they are. And I'm like, I'm 5'1". Like, there's no way I'm gonna run at the same pace. And then I'm like, at the end of the class, I'm like dying, absolutely dying. Like, I
Hmm.
cannot come back. Anyway, okay, we've touched on a lot of different things: vulnerability, being intentional about where you're showing up in business, having having effective boundaries and trying new things, being open to feedback, all those wonderful things. If there was one kind of piece of advice that you wanted to leave people with, whether that's just a mindset shift or it's a just one simple action they could do, what would that be?
Ah, this is top of mind for me just based on the workshop that I facilitated yesterday, and the theme of it was your voice matters. And that would be the piece of advice I have for people, where sometimes feel like people feel they're they don't have as much influence as they'd like, or they can't impact change, but if you don't say anything, nothing will happen. And your voice is important and your voice really does matter. So I just really would encourage people to have that internal dialogue to start, where they're like, oh, the story I'm telling myself with my voice, it matters. And the way you interact with people is really impactful as well. So I just really want people to give themselves some credit. Like life is hard. Don't be your own worst critic. I'm working on it too. And just talk to yourself the way a friend you would talk to one of your best friends or someone that you love and care about, because
Mm.
you value their voice and their opinion. So that would be the piece of advice that I want to leave with anybody who sees this.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a positive and encouraging note. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your energy, and for letting me be a little caffeinated and unhinged in this episode. It has been quite the joy. Thanks.
Thank you. This was so much fun chatting with you as always. I appreciate your time.